Hello, 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 everyone. Greetings to all of you soul searchers, spiritual awakeners, and those of you who are on the path, really, of spiritual awakening. We are so excited. Today, we're going to be talking about awakening to our true soul's nature. We have an amazing guest who's going to come on in just a minute, who's going to share about her awakening and all the intricacies of that journey. So I think you're going to be really happy to hear about the ascension process. Meanwhile, my name is Joan of Angels. I'm a transformational coach and a soul awakening guide, and I'm really happy to host this show on behalf of Portal to Ascension and with my dear friend Tanjila of Soul Search.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Joan. I'm Tanjila, the founder of Soul Search. And I'm just so excited to be here with all of you today as we explore another dimension of ascension. And it's always great to be here with you, Joan, and always great to be here with everyone watching and really feeling your energies here today. Thank you for joining us. A lot of you guys, Sam, Blessed by the Best, Starseed, Anders, Kate, so many of you have been coming to our interviews on a regular basis. Lars, so it's just so great to see you all here today. And definitely feel free to be coming in with your questions and comments during the show.
You know, I'm really excited to do this. And we've been doing this deep dive into ascension. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Who knew that there were so many paths and so many ways to wake up, and how many people are actually really waking up? So, guys, let us know where you're from, because when I do these shows, I envision this globe and with light, little light beams, towers, wherever you guys tell me you are. So it's very exciting to see the world fill up with light as we talk about ascension, Tanjila.
Exactly. And there's so many different aspects to ascension that we've been exploring. And we're just so excited today because we have with us Dr. Payton Tonz. And she is an integrative psychotherapist, scholar, teacher, and healer. Experiencing a spontaneous and direct spiritual awakening at the age of 19, she was charged with the task of bringing together Western psychology and Eastern wisdom teachings on nature of the self and on the process of spiritual awakening. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist in California and Arizona, and she has completed her MA in integral counseling psychology and a PhD in East West psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco. She is the originator of New Paradigm Psychology, a discipline which draws from the fields of depth psychology, Advaita Vedanta, neuroscience, neurobiology, and quantum field theory, with the goal of self-mastery through self-knowledge, psychological healing, and liberation from all forms of conditioned and limiting beliefs. So this is going to be a fascinating talk. Again, another diverse ascension expert, clinical and trained therapist and psychologist, bringing together both East and West in her training and her practice, in her healing work. So it's going to be really exciting to dive in with her today.
All right, let's bring her on. Payton.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, Payton. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that awesome introduction.
Well, we're really excited to have you here with your expertise. You know, it's really wonderful to be able to get this different perspective on ascension.
Yes. Yes.
So Payton, I have a question for you. I always like to start with, like, how did you awaken? Like, how did you come to be this master teacher on ascension? How did you start and wait? Like, what was your awakening process?
Yeah. So I start when I was 7. I had this period of time when I would lie in bed at night and know that I was here from another place and here to kind of save the earth, and it was this really intense. It was really beautiful, actually, this connection I felt to my purpose at that age. But then at 19, I was already on the path to being interested in psychology and doing depth healing work with people. But I started to become really, asking the existential questions. Who am I? I was just becoming really introspective and asking those, life meaning questions. And I had a spontaneous awakening. I just had started to take some classes in psychology and philosophy and religion and things like that. But this just literally happened in a sober moment in my bedroom, waking up from a nap. And I just literally had this, like the veils parting, and just perceiving the one nature of reality, that everything is one being, one reality that is love, that is the substrate reality to everything, and that's who I am and what we all are. And so that was basically it. It was literally just like a single moment in time, but the knowledge, what I saw, what I perceived, was undoubtable to me. Like, I mean, and I've spent all these years, integrating that, right, and doing all the healing work and growing up as a human being and all those things. But that was really the spiritual awakening that then put me on the path to studying non-dual teachings and Indian, a lot of Indian yoga and stuff like that. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the story.
And when did you start pursuing psychology and therapy as your profession? And as you were doing that, did you know you were always going to be wanting to integrate spirituality and psychology, or is that something that came later?
Yeah, so by the time I had the awakening, I already had it in my heart to be a therapist. I knew I wanted to work one-on-one. My mom was a school psychologist, so I kind of had that in the family. But I knew I wanted to be a healer. That was clear. But it was really when I had the awakening that I also received the vision of that my charge in life, my mission, was to bring together Western psychology with spiritual teachings, with the spiritual awakening. And so that's when I had the clear vision of marrying the two. And then I went on from there to go ahead and do my master's and do the whole licensing path as a therapist, while also going to CIIS, which is such an amazing institution that's founded on integrative studies. So I got blessed with the perfect education and support to start, even when I was in my master's program, weaving the two, because I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I really got to take full advantage of the whole journey of what ended up being 13 years of graduate school. From the beginning, knowing what my bigger vision was and really being able to utilize the process to develop this particular body of work.
I like that you call it a body of work. So it sounds to me like you've taken your studies, how you have gone through your own spiritual awakening and integrated it, and you're sharing it in processes. Like, how do you do that then? Like, what does this body of work include then?
So I'm just now positioning myself here with you all, talking to the public about it more now. So I've been integrating it so far just in my own work with individual clients, really, as it comes through me, just working one-on-one with people in long-term depth healing. And so it kind of is pulled out of me in that way. But at this time, I'm starting to really teach. And I guess, it's a creative process, honestly. Like, I feel like I'm really in the process. But what I can say is that, it makes sense if you look at reality from a more holistic, integrative perspective, that everything is one field of knowledge, right? Reality is one field of knowledge, which includes all the different substrate fields of knowledge, right? Like psychology or biology or, quantum physics. These things are all part of one reality, right? So to me, like, I can list off I'm integrating these different fields of study, but if if something's true, it's all going to fit into one integrated field of wisdom, of knowledge. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But more specifically, I can answer that question in this way, that if we look at just bringing together spiritual awakening and psychology, to me, they are not separate, because, you know, I believe and experience the nature of who we are. Our true identity is a spiritual being. And that's what ascension and spiritual awakening is coming to know ourselves as, you know, spirit or consciousness or whatever you want to call it, and becoming a human being that is rooted in that spiritual self. So if you look at it that way, how could it not be psychologically relevant, right? Our identity is purely psychological. And so to me, like a psychology without spirituality or a spirituality without psychology is missing an essential part. So I might be saying that because I am a psychologist, because, you know, people could say the same thing from other fields of study. But yeah, so to me, that's really what I want to teach, is how can we break down the walls and the barriers between these different ways of looking at reality and just create more integrated fields of study or ways of understanding, or even languaging of how we talk about things.
And Payton, I know you have an upcoming webinar and course on the psychology of awakening. And so what does that look like for you? Why should people be excited or interested in that? What is the psychology of awakening, and what can we learn about ascension awakening from a psychological perspective? Because that's a very unique perspective that none of our speakers so far have even touched upon. So I'd love to hear that.
Great. Yeah, so I think the main answer to that, the entryway into how is it psychological, is through our self-inquiry, right? So what I'm going to be, you know, talking about in the webinar, as well as in this summit, this Ascension of the Soul Summit, is similar. So it's basically having people do a practice of self-inquiry to really slow down and look within at how the mind is operating, and how really understanding the ego construct, which is just a self-identifying construct in the psyche. It's just a generic structure ultimately, which comes to be formulated uniquely for each of us based on our conditioning, based on the way our whole nervous system is formulated from our development. But essentially, the ego construct is just a generic structure that can be hacked, in a sense of being witnessed as a construct that's based in thought. So it's about how can we break through that unconscious orientation that we have, where even if we're spiritually awake, a lot of us haven't seen through the way that the ego actually works, in order to break free from it more and more of the time, if that makes sense. So much of it is unconscious. So it's how do we learn to break through and see through that ego construct, where we're oftentimes just living through that, right? Which is a different psychological state of being than being identified with our spiritual nature, which is just present-centered awareness, which is just pure consciousness. And when we're centered in that is when we come more from the heart. We have access to more of our creative nature. Our mind is relaxed and open and fluid, versus being, you know, constricted. Like, I need to be this persona in this situation so that I can get accepted and get what I need, and, you know, all these different kind of constructs that we live through. So I know it's a long answer, but that is the essence of it, is how do we see through the ego construct so that we can learn. It's not that it's bad, but it's just that it becomes transformed once we start to recognize our spiritual nature and can more of the time root our sense of self in that present-centered being.
That's huge. How do you do that? I mean, how do, okay, you broke it down in such a great way, but the question I have is like, how does we as humans actually accomplish that? You've made it sound very simple.
Yes. So it is really simple, right? We can all do it right now together for a moment, right? As I'm talking, I'm even aware of it within myself. So it's a difference between just being resting. We could all just even practice it together. Like, what's it like to just let the mind splay open for a moment and just be, just let ourselves just be, versus becoming something, doing something linearly. So it's actually that simple. We can have micro moments of this right now together, right? So it's really, I think it is really theoretical. Like, it's what you're saying, I get it. It's like, it sounds really great. That makes sense, a lot of sense. But I think one of the things I feel I'm here to offer is a theory, is a map, is a map that's true to reality, that will help people to be able to see it more. Because if we don't have a map, we're just kind of like, it's easy to just become identified with the ego. So the how to is really ultimately through practice, but it's also through our healing process, right? So another angle on this would be, the more that we are doing our inner work, doing our shadow work, healing ourselves, healing our nervous system, our trauma. Because when we're in trauma, we are in a contracted state. When we're living from our trauma, we aren't able to relax, right? So the whole other piece of this healing is about healing the body, healing, ourselves as human beings. And the more we do that, the more we can feel safe, right? And the more we feel safe, the more we can relax, and the more we can settle into our spiritual nature. So you can kind of look at it from both angles. The how-to is just doing your healing work and all the things that support that. And the spiritual awakening, naturally, it can emerge from that, right? Because when we're relaxed, then we're able to really be in our heart and be in our beingness. Or we can look at it more from the spiritual angle. How do we help a person, open spiritually and have expanded experiences and so forth? So that's the how-to, I guess, in a nutshell.
I love how you use the word relax, Payton, because that's the word I use a lot in spirituality and just consciousness. And it's really, just a process of relaxing into who we are. So I love the fact that that's the word you use, because it can really be that easy, just to relax. We don't realize how much of our time we spend walking around constricted.
Totally. Exactly. It's so simple. It reminds me, my mom used to have this magnet on the kitchen refrigerator that was a rock with a snake on it that was like in like a contracted position, and it said relax. It was just exactly that. Like, that's all that's needed.
Definitely. And then we have a question coming in from Anders. What is the difference between spiritual ascension and Carl Jung's individuation?
Oh, that's a great question. I love Carl Jung, and I've studied quite a bit of individuation with Carl Jung. So, I mean, I would say in a nutshell, they're pretty much the same. If we look at Carl Jung's individuation, it's about becoming fully actualized in your full potential as a human being. So, like, flowering fully as your unique expression, your authentic being. And that is what Ascension is about as well, right? So the only thing that Jung's theory didn't, it was implicated actually in his theory, but he didn't use the language. But he did talk about in individuation, we're coming more into our capital S self, which essentially was pointing to our spiritual nature. He talked about it in different terms than that, but essentially, you know, Jung actually was really talking a lot about spiritual awakening and integration in his theories.
Beautiful. So there really isn't as much of a difference as people think when they're looking at these psychological terms versus the spiritual.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends. But Jung was uniquely in that camp. Jung's work was very transpersonal. So I wouldn't be able to say the same thing about necessarily like some other traditional psychologists like Freud or, you know, some of the other like self-psychology theory and things like that. But one of the beautiful things for me is as I've understood the spiritual piece and that the true nature is the spiritual being, you're able, once you see things, you're able to see them more clearly in other theories, but the creators of those theories might not have seen it themselves, but they were kind of onto it. So there's a lot of that, I think, in psychology as well. But definitely Jung. Jung was really a master in this, I believe.
Well, people are liking your discussion on Jung and on the inner consciousness. When you teach now, do you teach like your classes? Are you teaching people how they can attain this spiritual mastery? Is that something you're going to be teaching, say, in your workshop for the Ascension of the Soul? Are they the same, Ascension and spiritual awakening? It's great questions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, to answer the first part, I'm going to be teaching in the summit workshop as well as my free webinar. I will be teaching this self-inquiry tool. So we're going to really be working on people's experiential, the direct field of people's experience. So that's with all that I'm teaching, and I'm just beginning to teach now. So this is like, I can tell you what I'm aiming to do here in the short term, but I haven't been doing this. I'm creating it as I go here. But to me, what I feel is so important is supporting people to have their own direct inquiry. And so that the truth is here to be discovered, you know, and I want to just put myself forward as a guide and a facilitator to support people to have their own experience. And so in the workshop, as well as the webinar, I'm going to be teaching this specific tool that's the seer-seen differentiation, self-inquiry meditation. And that is an ancient practice from the Hindu Vedas, from Advaita Vedanta, which is the ancient scriptures from India that have a section of the teachings that are on the nature of reality. So they have some very beautiful like technologies that they taught for how to kind of directly cut through the illusion for people to see their spiritual self. And so that's what I'm going to do, is actually facilitate an experience for people. And I would say, to your question, the goal definitely is self-mastery. That's what it's all about. And I think that this particular tool, the ability to, even if you only see it one time, you know, you can't unsee something. So this is a powerful tool that people can experience themselves to start to, it's differentiating the inner being from the mind. And I know that sounds, you know, really simple and okay, well, how's that going to help me, you know? But it will, it does. It's powerful. And once you begin to create a wedge inside, you know, then you can do practices and you can begin to open that wedge more and more. And I think with the way that the energies are shifting and like the cosmic shifts and all of this that we're going through are supporting people to awaken. And, you know, with the right kind of support, I think people can actually really go through some profound transformation in a short period of time. So, and then I am going to be teaching this longer 7-week online course, which I can say more about, but that's going to really go way more into depth with all of this. And how does the, you know, the psyche that's rooted in bondage and conditioned reality transform ultimately into like an awakened, ascended master, right? Which is like what we're all, which is the end goal, I guess, we're all working towards.
Wow, that's exciting. And so I like what you said about separating the inner being from the mind. And that's, you know, part of this important part of the work that you're doing. Is that very revolutionary or controversial for traditional psychology? Is that a part of it? Is this something very different where you're really bringing in your Eastern traditional traditions and training?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, it's very revolutionary, and it would be controversial, I'm sure, to a lot of people. There's really no reason for it to be controversial other than that it's a paradigm shift and people are resistant to that. And also it's a self-empowerment paradigm shift, right? And we can see that there are certain forces in conventional, you know, medicine or maybe pop psychology that has a different approach, that's less self-empowering, right? That's more like, you know, just do these things and, you know, you'll be fine. But it's disempowering, you know. So this is controversial, I guess, in that sense, that it's much more about self-responsibility and self empowerment, and the idea that we are whole as we are is revolutionary, I think, for sure.
Well, that sounds interesting. So made me think of this, Payton. We're in such unique times, revolutionary times, even in the history of our country, the history of the planet itself. You know, we've entered into new waters, in a sense, in this great awakening, the Aquarian age, all of this is happening. But how does, in this, you know, how does your work then, and learning, like, you know, this body of how our conscious connections are, how will this help us in today's climate, you know, to deal with what's going on in the world around us today?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it does.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the first answer to that is the most obvious, which is that it gives us a sense of security and an anchor point within ourselves. With a world that's changing, that's so uncertain and is changing so rapidly, we having a sense of connection to our inner being, and that's including, you know, our spiritual nature as our core, but also when we're aligned more with our spiritual nature, we're more able to tap into what we might call intuition, or our authentic self, our creativity, our sense of knowing, our sense of guidance, our sense of, you know, trusting ourselves, our resiliency. All these things I really believe and experience are enhanced when we're able to access that inner peace, inner anchor, and, you know, come back to that every day. And it really helps us to be able to do the dance of engaging in the world each day and doing what we can, and also like surrendering and letting go, because those are kind of the two movements, right? We participate, we're engaging, we're doing what we can within our sphere of experience, And then we also, the feminine principle, we come back to ourselves, we reset, we resource within. So yeah, so I think that it's a really powerful tool for the times that we're in, for sure, to be more self-reliant and resilient.
I'm sorry. I keep turning it on mute because there's sounds in the house. Okay, but I feel like what you're doing then, and the fact that we have this conference going on right now at this time in the history is really important. Maybe I'd love it if you tell us what you're going to teach, and then let's have Tina show us the conference for a minute and take a moment out to talk about that.
Sure. So yeah, so what I'm going to teach is exactly what I've been talking about. So it's just a short segment I know that I have, and I'm going to be talking about this piece about the psyche and helping people, guiding them through an actual practice, the see or seen differentiation tool from the Vedas. And this is a practice that walks us through step by step the different layers of our mind and layers of our inner experience to rest. Ultimately, it's basically like a sophisticated tool to help us arrive at that inner being and rest in that inner being. And for people who, are at different parts, different stages of their awakening, some people might already kind of be familiar with this, which is fine. I mean, this is still a really useful tool. And for people that are just new to the path too, it's a great introduction and something that people can learn and take with them into their practice. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do a little mini teaching on what I'm talking about here in terms of the structure of the psyche and differentiating between the mind and the inner being, and being able to support people to have that actual experience of the inner being, even if it's just for a short time, to begin to open up a space for something different. Because until we've seen through the ego mind structure, we don't know. We're just identified fully with that ego mind. So it's a powerful experience that people can have just being introduced to this.
Great. And then Payton, we have another question coming in. And this might relate because it's wonderful that you are bringing people into a practice during your, your sharing during the conference. But Anders asked how to relax subconscious contractions, chronic tensions that we don't feel or even are aware of in our conscious awareness.
Beautiful question. Yeah. So I would say the answer to that really is through the body. So the most powerful and effective way to do that is by becoming aware of the sensations in the body. So like you said, unconscious contractions, how do we relax unconscious contractions? Is by beginning to become aware of the somatic experience in the body. And so you can do this. Again, this is part of this meditation tool I'll be offering, but you can also do this yourself, literally just closing your eyes and focusing on the sensations in the body. So just doing like a body scan and becoming aware of the sensations. And the key here is to relax the mind out of its commentary. So the mind is always wanting to make a commentary and a story and a narrative about everything. And so, which is beautiful. I mean, the mind is amazing. It's just that when it's cut off from the body, it's kind of runs amok, right? So we want to get into these practices where we're just turning our attention away from the mind, away from being like mind-centered, to just putting our attention on the sensations in the body. And literally, again, I know it sounds super simple, but it is simple, but can be powerful, where when you just actually focus on the sensations, it can start to relax. And there are some other tools specifically designed for resourcing activation in the nervous system, which I could say more about, but that's really the answer. I would say is that the key is this wisdom about focusing the attention on the body. The relaxation of the contraction is not going to come from the mind, right? The relaxation has to come from the body. So we go straight to where the contraction is in the body, and that's where it can just gently be released. So, and then of course, you know, the bigger work in response to this question is that doing the deeper healing of understanding our unconscious patterns and our triggers and why we are come to be the way we are and how we can heal that, you know, in a deeper way, ultimately is the other level of resolution of those kind of things.
So do you do sessions with people, Payton? And of course we had a question, do you do readings, but do you do sessions and readings with people, or are you a teacher?
No, yes, the answer is yes, I do. That's been primarily what I do is psychotherapy, integrative psychotherapy sessions. I do a lot of long-term work with people, deep long-term, you know, healing work with weekly sessions or bi-weekly sessions. And that's been the primary structure of what I've been doing. So I continue to do that. And I am pretty full. I'm full at the moment, actually. But I do have, you know, I'm not turning any, you know, I'm welcoming interest in that way. But yeah, that's really what I've been doing. And then now I'm adding in the teaching to that.
Wow. I love that. I love that. So how would we know that we're like a perfect client for you, by the way?
Well, I think at this point, I think that people that are spiritually curious, at least, would be the best fit. People that are, I work with a lot of people who identify as empaths or sensitives. I've helped a lot of people actually like validate that and understand that about themselves who didn't necessarily, and that's been really helpful to people. But yeah, somebody who's really wanting to do the work, you know, really committed, really ready, aware, has a degree of awareness, is like committed to the work, and really just needs a good guide and, you know, loving, safe container with some good guidance.
I really love this. So this isn't if you want to know whether to leave your marriage or where to live. It's really about your spiritual connection and your soul work.
Yeah. And I'm helping people, like we've talked about, to connect to, yeah, their spiritual nature, but really to their authentic self and who they are, which is more what I call the soul, right? We're talking about the soul of Ascension. I think it's interesting, you know, these words, right? Soul or spirit, and what do they all mean exactly? I think of the soul and the spirit as being very the same in a way, but also the soul is kind of its own being that is different than just the human being. I think it's deeper, that's gone through many different incarnations and lives personally. But yeah, so I think it helps people also to connect to their more authentic self or their soul being, right? That's also part of the work for sure, their authentic self.
That's powerful, Payton. And I just love how you are really integrating this body consciousness and body awareness and this expansion into your psychological, you know, work and canon. So when you're working individually with people, are you bringing that in? And now, obviously, not everyone has opportunity to work with you individually, but now bringing this new body of work and way of practicing psychology out to more and more people through your webinar and your course. So even if they're not able to work with you one-on-one, they can start actually practicing this type of work with you.
Exactly. That's exactly what I want, is to take what I've been doing with individuals and bring it out. I want to offer, it's not the same as an individual session, but I want to offer the same kind of container, the same more direct sharing of the knowledge and supporting people in their journey of healing. And that's what my intention is, so I can reach more people this way.
Wow. Well, you really are a leader in this field in terms of revolutionizing psychology and bringing in the spiritual aspect, which is so important, as we know, so you're really kind of transforming this entire field in a huge way for those who are ready to receive.
Yeah. Thank you
Lovely.
for that reflection. Yeah.
This has been so great to speak with you about all of this, Payton. I'm excited that you're going to be at the conference. I'm going to be at the conference too, so I'll get to see you and hear what you have to say. I think the work is so important in today's planetary life here, both personally and kind of globally and galactically, in a sense, on all levels. I think we really need to know who we are.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate this. Is there anything else you'd like to say or add that we left out?
I think we covered it. I just feel really grateful to have this opportunity and, to show up and be honored and seen and get to share my light and my part, my unique facet of the diamond. And yeah, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully seeing people at the summit. And if, people want to join my webinar, my course, or learn more about what I do. So yeah, thank you so much.
Great, Payton. And thank you so much for everyone joining. As you guys heard today, we have this incredible, really transformational healer and psychologist with us who is going to be joining us at the Ascension of the Soul conference to really impart not just her wisdom, but actually give us some techniques, that we can start using in our own everyday lives in this process of ascension and awakening for each one of us. And you can dive in with her there. And then also she has an incredible free webinar coming up where you can dive even more deeply, and then a whole course. So you have so many opportunities to be connecting with Payton. So many of us have been like, have either seen therapists, seen psychologists, and, have received benefit. But now here we go. Here is a whole deeper aspect of that entire science and that practice that we can start delving in with you, Payton, which is really incredible. So thank you for all that you're doing and bringing to the world. We really appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Payton. Unbelievable. All of these different experiences people have, that this awakening ascension process is very common. It seems to be happening worldwide, Tanjila.
Definitely. And it's great because all of us, we are just expanding. We are connecting to one another. We're connecting more deeply to ourselves. We are understanding our own connection to spirit. And, what I love about this conference and this interview series that we're doing is that we are really able to dive in on so many different aspects of ascension and all these different techniques of connecting to ourselves more deeply, to spirit, and to one another. And so it's really exciting, just to hear Payton, because she is a psychologist and a therapist, yet she is so spiritual and she is so trained in, the Eastern spiritual philosophies and practices. And she's bringing this all together for us and bringing us practices that we can use. It's
which I think is so important, because I know people that have had spiritual awakening experiences and then were hospitalized as if they were, mentally ill and had as if it was a quote psychiatric issue. Whereas being in integrative medicine or integrative spirituality, you understand that we can connect to the spirit world. We have our guides, we have our angels, we have those sentient beings right with us. Gosh, this has been great, Tanjila. I love doing this series with you.
Yeah, it's so much fun, Joan.
I know. Do you happen to know our next guest?
Yes, I do. And I invite all of you to join us tomorrow. We are going to be interviewing Deva Vidya, and actually Alan Steinfeld is going to be joining me to conduct that interview. And Deva is an incredible shamanic priestess based out of Sedona, and she, as is Payton. Payton is actually based out of Sedona as well. And I know Kate Rohrer, who is joining us and watching on Facebook, you're in Sedona as well. So if you're in Sedona, we're actually, hosting a music festival on October 23rd for those of you who'd like to join us for that. But tomorrow we have Deva Vidya, shamanic priestess. She does light language activations, leads people on really incredible shamanic journeys on the land, in person, as well as, all types of online spiritual healing and guidance. And she will be joining us to talk about the dark night of the soul, which, as you know, that is a very intriguing topic for a lot of us.
Well, not so intriguing. Most of us, when you're on your spiritual path at some time, have had to really face, oh my God, I had to face a whole group of angels that said, well, did you do what you came here to do? Mm-hmm. And I had to say, well, so yeah, it's a big deal. So that's going to be a great talk. The conference is going to be great. Reach out to Payton if you have questions on your own spirituality, on your own growth, and you want that kind of healing with her. If you are interested, guys, in finding practitioners, other people who are seeking answers to what am I here to do, the quintessential search for meaning, the soul search, that is what soul search is. Do you want to talk a minute about that?
Sure, definitely. Thanks, Joan. So Soul Search, you can visit us at soulsearch.io. We are a global online platform for spirituality and consciousness, and we have a whole directory of incredible healers, all of who you'll be seeing as part of the Ascension of the Soul conference, who you've been meeting here on this series. Quantum psychologist Payton, divine feminine way shower Kalina Melnar last week, shamanic priestess Deva tomorrow. I mean, we just have such an incredible depth and breadth of practitioners. Brandon, who develops and creates Organite tools for transformation. So you can come to Soul Search and search for practitioners and guides to support you on your journey. See who resonates with you and where you're at. You can also access all types of meditations, find courses, see all types of experiences. We have a lot of different online experiences you can join, as well as in person, depending on where you are. So really, it's a great community we have, and just invite all of you guys to come check us out and see what we have going on.
That's amazing. I mean, I found Tanjila, and I'm now one of her, I guess, one of those souls that you would seek out to help you with your soul search.
Exactly.
That was so well said. So guys, I'm going to introduce Portal to Ascension. Guys, I'm an intuitive guide and a transformational coach, and I do work with clients and teach. And I also work helping Neil at Portal to Ascension, I guess, where it's not plural, Portal to Ascensions, although there are many different ways to ascend. But I help Neil do events and helping right now with Soul Search and with the Ascension to the Soul. And what we do on Portal to Ascension is disclosure of humanity's ancient origins, truth of extraterrestrial presence, the advanced technology to use for consciousness, understanding beyond our 3D perception, and more on that level, how to live in a 5D consciousness. So I encourage you, if you haven't, go to portaltoascension.org and join us over there as well. Otherwise, you will be seeing us doing these wonderful interviews with Tanjila and our other soul search practitioners. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you all for joining us. We love being with you guys. Thanks for your energy, your comments, your great questions. It was wonderful being here with you, and excited to see you guys again soon.
All right. We'll see you on the other side, guys, next time.